security. You can't. And you cannot exclude your management and senior management and C-suite because the bad guys will target them, specifically target them. Everybody needs to be security aware. That's just the name of the game now. And so here's another risk that people don't think about. And it's where we end up making one employee a single point of failure. And this is interesting. Consider if you had this rock star employee that did this one thing and they did it so good and it was so complicated and you haven't bothered to document the process, that if this person is out and this thing needs to be done, it's a oh my goodness moment, right? People are running around like crazy. They don't know how to do it. Only this one person knew how to do it. They don't have the access. Even if they had the access, they don't know how to execute the process. So one of the ways we can mitigate that type of risk is proper documentation that is up to date, cross-training, and making sure it's not just one person that knows how to do this job, and making sure more than one person has credentials into this system that does this really important thing. Because if you are relying on one person, now people use this example about, well, what if such and such gets hit by the bus? Let's not have them get hit by the bus. Let's have them win the lottery. But the point is, they're no longer available. You just got an email, I won the lottery. I just made $20 million. You don't have to mail my stuff. It was nice doing business with you. See ya. What would that do to you if any of your employees, your core employees that did some core functions, would you be able to recover from that quickly? And if the answer to that is no, then you need to address that risk. You need to address that risk. That's employees as the weakest link and employees as a single point of failure. Our employees, I'm an employee. We are part of the value. We are actually, and once we're in our jobs, we are actually assets to our company. But like all assets need to be protected. And we need to make sure we keep our environments safe and we have contingencies in place for both employees as a risk in security and employees as a single point of failure.
All right.
Man, I could watch those all day.
Yeah.
We need to just release them as standalone content items for everyone.
Or they just need to fire this Matt and Dom guy and just let her talk all the time.
Just let her run the show. Hell yeah.
Yeah, just be done with it. Pretty awesome, though. Well, I'm actually super excited. And you and I wanted to get into a little topic when we bring our guests on, or maybe before, but we've got David back, and we bring in David back from last week. We also have Bill coming in, and I want to let him introduce himself. So let's go ahead and bring them all in, and then we'll get into the discussion. What's up, boys?
How's it going?
It's great to see you again, David. David, you've kind of introduced yourself, but mind refreshing the audience, what you do in your role, and then we'll pop over. And Bill, I'd love for you to give me a few minutes about your background and what you do here and what your role is on security as well.
David, manager of security operations and balancing team resources around for our various projects.
Very cool. Bill? And you have to introduce your dog, too, because your dog's on camera, so it's pretty awesome.
That's my boy, Sully. Usually he's the one off camera, and my other one is the one on camera, but he decided to be the photo bomber today. I am Bill Bernard. Let's see here. My background is basically I got into security before there was a security team, and so I started out in network engineering and thought that the whole security part of it was more sexy, gravitated over to there. And I've been in security for over 20 years now and love it. And, it's my passion. I've worked at large companies like Costco and REI, and I've been in consulting. I've been a PCI assessor. So I've been the judge and jury of people's security. Um, I came here because one of the things I'm really passionate about is I think the leadership and the strategy of security. I just think there needs to be more of it, and so I came here to be the director of security engineering and operations. So I'm with David. I run tools, so that's tools like our endpoint detection and response, our vulnerability management, our eventually our security services edge, which I know we'll talk about later, cloud workload security, those things, and then also run security just in general from anything enterprise wise. And trying to work, we're working closely with our engineering team to also do for our platform, our marketplace.
It's awesome. And I love that you talked about that actually, Bill, because so many companies either focus very heavily on one or the other, right? And what I mean by that is they either focus extremely hard on the application security. We're going to bring in Sneak. We're going to get our code right. We're going to deal with the way we handle secrets. We're going to deal with the way we build all this. And that is security. But then they completely neglect the aspect of I'm going to pwn Dom, who's a developer, get his developer keys for AWS, and then I'm going to destroy your little perfectly built application, right? And so you have this other side where some CEOs focus on the security side only being that internal security and let the other aspect lax. And so I'm glad that you brought up both of them because it kind of talks about that well-rounded nature of having to deal with the security and the security of the application, but at the same time, all the little things that go into day-to-day making technology work. Right. And I think, to
Yep.
your point, what we talked about before the show, and Dom, this is where I'd love to let you kick this off. Dom and I were talking about one of our biggest desires and what would make us the happiest on trying to reduce some risk in our organization. Dom, do you want to kick that off?
Yeah, FIDO, right? We've seen a lot of research and on the effectiveness of FIDO. Matt and I use it in the limited capacity we're able to. But I think it has massive benefits, right? It's definitely the most phishing resistant credential out there. So we love using it. It's also easy to use, which helps.
Yeah, and one of the key reasons for this is when you think about it, in cybersecurity, we're telling people that as risk escalates, so too should be the controls escalating, right? And as you start thinking about that, the C-levels, the executives, the directors like yourself, Bill, we're heavily targeted. And when you think about that, we should see an escalation in that risk, reduction from that. And Dom and I have both been big fans of FIDO2 since it's been introduced. I think you and I both have had at least 20 or 30 YubiKeys in our lives, right? As well as rings and other weird adaptations of this. But why does it matter? For anybody that's playing along at home, here's why it matters. If I do a man in the middle or an AITM or an adversary in the middle attack, so that's like what, the three, I think, things. If I do an AITM against you and your primary default setting in Microsoft is to go to a security key, it will fail as soon as you are asked to authenticate. It will fail for a URL callback failure, which means that I was in the middle, and even though it was expecting Microsoft Online, it got Matt Lee's InkedInOnline.com, right? That I might be using for my nefarious purposes. And so what happens is there is no phishable way to do that. Now, can you replay a token that's been signed with a FIDO token? Yes, absolutely. Those are still just as attackable as any other OAuth token or OIDC token that you're going to hold. But that said, if you make it to where your top level executives have it, you don't necessarily force all of the rank and file to carry around a security token, which is one of the biggest pushbacks, but you do have the most impact reduction for the people that you do choose to be in that FIDO carrying group and that ones that are going to hold those security tokens. And it would definitely be if you have a separation, if you're an MSP out there and you have a separation between your administrative accounts and your non-administrative accounts, which you should, the administrative accounts should certainly be targeted by FIDO, right? Yeah. Okay, so that's aside. Wanted to get that out there. If there's an ask, if I was going to be the guy being political, I would say I would love to see FIDO be more and more available all across the board for the methods of sign-in which we use in PAX 8, not the ones they are today. And I think there's an expansion capability of that. And, it's one of those where I've got to use it on Cybersecurity Month and ask for it. So thanks for letting us do that, Bill. I want to get that on your radar. So, Bill, you joined us over, and I think one of the things we wanted to ask you is, like, what are you working on right now? What is that next thing that needs to be done that is our next iteration? And I'll set the stage for everybody. PAX 8, if I get up on stage and talk about your competitor that's about to start that has fast, flexible, tied to an identity source, consuming SaaS applications, using modern functions where everything's very scalable, that's us, right? We already have that. We've already been AADJ and or Azure Active Directory joined. Sorry for being up there. We've already been AADJ and Intune managed and all the things, the
Actually,
conditional
Entra
access
ID.
policies. Thank you. I'm not doing it.
Sorry, I
Microsoft,
had
you'll
to.
have to send me a formal notice, I suppose. I'll get a note from Kristen tomorrow. She'll be like, "Yo, bro, it's Intra." But true story. But we're already Intra joined, right, in that way. And so, Bill, you're now trying to take it to that next level of protection. Help people understand what you're working on right now, Bill.
Yeah, from a strategic level, one of the first things I identified when I got here, just like you just brought up, is that we are primarily a remote organization. We can
Yep.
work from anywhere, and there
Global.
is not a lot of perimeter. We can talk about offices and things like that, but the offices are not they're not enclaves anymore like they were.
Yeah, they have
when
no
the net
juicy
was bad.
bits in them, right? There's nothing to grab in that regard. It's the
Exactly. Everything's up in the cloud, right? We're a SaaS oriented company. So one of the first things I thought of that I wanted to really do strategically was get Secure Services Edge so that we could, what I like to call bubble wrap our users,
Yep.
get them onto secure networking or secure web gateways and ride that traffic all the way to those SaaSes. And in the case of our own cloud infrastructure to those IaaSes and PaaSes so that they're secure. And again, I love the term bubble wrap because we're going to put a wrap around you and make sure that you're all good and safe.
Yeah. And moving
So
to a
we're
modern
working on
service.
that.
Well, moving to a modern service edge is actually really a critical moment for a lot of companies that are in this world, right? And Dom, you and I have ad hoc created our own service edges that we protect ourselves
Right.
with, right, through Cloudflare. And I didn't say that, Bill. I have no idea what you're talking about. But we understand there's risk. If I am out in the wild and I'm using public Wi-Fi, there are risks. If I'm out
At
in
a
the
hacker
wild and I'm working at
conference.
home, let's just, a threat actor conference probably is more in this case, as it turned out. But you're right, it is a hacker conference. But what's interesting is like when I'm at home, I'm under attack constantly by the devices that are on my home network. Those are all risks to us as an organization. And I think wrapping your traffic in bubble wrap, which I'm now going to steal and use, Bill, by
I
the way,
like
this is
that.
my bubble wrap SSE, allows you to encapsulate the traffic out to an endpoint and an edge that is the only edge you can access our systems from. When you think about that, what you're doing is you're forcing a threat actor to have to either go through those same processes to gain access to that service edge and be validated, which is very tough, right? And then also, they're wanting to attack from their own assets. They must be behind some service edge and know enough about us and have the understanding of what are those gates and where am I going to go. So I do love that. Do you have any ideas of what the things you're looking for, Bill? Not to put you on the spot, but in your selection process, what are some of those key components you're looking for in the right service edge?
One of the things is, so we're challenged with, user acceptance of these kind of things. So
Sure.
it has to be transparent. It cannot be over cumbersome for them. It has to be speedy. We're going into the CIA triad here, the availability side of it. And I'm a security
Go ahead and
guy.
define it. You can't use an
However,
acronym without defining it.
Yeah. Confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And one of the things is I'm a security guy, and I've always hated the fact that the IT and the infrastructure people are only about availability when it's left to the C and the I portion, the confidentiality.
It's yours. 2/3
integrity
of it.
However, 2/3 of it, right? But however, in this case, we got to make sure that availability piece of it is fast, transparent, and non-invasive to our end users, and that's one of the things that we're working on. So we're looking at good speed. These secure web gateways have to have a lot of pops, have to have a lot of throughput to be able to take that traffic and wrap it, and get it going. So that's one thing. Another one is for us to be able to push out our policies. Something that David's really taken point on is looking at the functionality and bringing more functionality. I mean, in my mind, I'm very focused on the secure web gateway, as you can tell, but he's looking at other things like cloud-based firewalls and the DNS security and those kind of things. So we want extensibility, Matt. That's what we really need.
100%.
We want to grow with the vendor that we're going to work with. So that's one thing. And like I said, just making sure that user experience is good for everybody so they use it. They don't know they're using it and they're protected.
You touched on a couple of key aspects of this, right? Like when we get into what Dom and I want to talk about, which is winning hearts and minds, when we get into that aspect of it, this is one of those components. It's knowing your people well enough to know what is going to be that impact to get the hearts and minds. And I think you nailed another component that's so important for me in cybersecurity is you want to make it as much as possible seamless to the user. You want it to just work, right? Brian Krebs says, listen, or Chris Krebs says, make it harder for users to do the wrong thing and easier for users to do the right? And when you start thinking about that, talking about the things you just brought up, the transparency aspect, the extensibility, the growth aspect of it is really critical to that end. And then the other part you brought up, which is starting to talk about web firewalls and starting to talk about DNS extensibility outside of that SWG, your software web gateway, you're starting to now get into an understanding that I can now do a better job at all of my controls. And let's talk through it. So 2.3 says address unauthorized software. Well, if I force every bit of traffic through an SWG with a web firewall that allows me to say, no, Matt, you can't go to that website, it's not okay, then we actually can enforce more of that SaaS layer software that falls under 2.1 and 2.3, right, of the software we use. On the other side of it, when you get into 2.1, the enumeration capabilities get much larger because I can now discover where you're going. I can now track those aspects and see what we're actually running up against. You now have an approval process that comes natively with it because I can't use it. Now I have to get it approved. I can use it, right? And so you really have a lot of maturation that comes from bringing that traffic in one place. But it's not new maturation. In fact, it's actually old maturation. What I mean by that is we did this before. We had a pretty little firewall. We had an amazing little gateway that it came out of. We were all in one building drinking coffee from the same crappy coffee place, right? We're all in that same world. And so we used to be able to do this quite effectively in office, right? And we're now having to find those other solutions for this delta that we're all finding ourselves in this remote work world, right? And so I think that's one of the topics we kind of wanted to get into is that we are all remote. We're not all in an office where I can have purview and checking things and enforcing things. How do you win hearts and minds in being secure and getting people to do the right thing, right? And that's the topic I'd love to open up for anybody that wants to tackle it first.
Yeah, I'll start because one of the things that I like to do is first, it takes somebody in my role. I cannot be I don't want to say no to people. I need to say yes, but so we got to get rid of this ivory tower mindset of security. The next thing is just tell everybody it takes a village. Just like I was saying before, just because you have a security team and security professionals on your, watching everything for you, doesn't mean you're secure. It takes everybody. So you tell them like, hey, join on board with this journey. And then it will work for us. You will be protected. We're going to make sure, going back to what you were saying and what Chris Krebs said, we want to we want to make it hard for you to do the wrong thing and easy to do the right thing. But let us help you and join on board with us and understand that we're not here as big brother or anybody to really, put a thumb on you. We're here to enable you. I call it when you roll out these solutions, I call it workforce enablement instead of restrictions. We're making
Sure.
it easier for you to do your job by protecting you.
Yeah, 100%. And we already kind of have a lot of that mantra built in at Pax8 in the sense that we've already made the systems fairly easy to just work. Right. You look at it, we have 1,600 plus global employees, and we have like 3 or 4 people in our technical team, right, that manage that. That goes towards what modern architecture and modern infrastructure actually can do and allow for. And now as you introduce these security features, what's also great about that is you can do them in the same exact Lego way, right? At the end of the day, when you're using Office 365 or Okta or Ping or whatever it may be, and you're bolting those into these solutions, they have a predictable behavior that you can test in a lab very easily, especially with SaaS software. So it makes it very easy for us to succeed in that regard. When it comes to hearts and minds, though, I think the challenge and the title of this show that I want to lean into is the employee's duty to stay secure. We say that as a way of opening this, and duty being this understanding of it's less about a duty to stay secure, and in my opinion, more of an understanding that we all want to protect this company. We all enjoy working for this. We all believe in our mission. We all know what we're trying to accomplish. And we have to stop the things that are in the way of our mission. And as an employee, it is our job to stay secure. It is our job to respond and work with our security team. It is our job to try to take our habits and be better. So what are some of the things that you see employees failing at that duty? And maybe we focus on that side of it. Dom, can you come up with a time or a type of an example where an employee fails at meeting that need from a security perspective? I can. I have 40 pictures of them this year.
Well, that's the not locking your computer is a big one. I've Nick caged many a humans in our office this year. That means that their background is Nick Cage, in case
and
anyone
not a
needs
fully
to know.
dressed
That's
Nick
not an
Cage
Urban
probably
Dictionary
either.
thing.
Yeah.
Often not. Maybe a vampire Nick Cage works really
That's
well.
always a good one.
But I think it's that entire idea, like the very bare basics of security hygiene, right? Like if my social media were compromised, you could start to learn a lot more about me, and you could start to guess at some other aspects of my life, right? So I think personal security for me is one. We train people, we get them to do all the right things at work, but then they do the wrong things at home, and then they're an unfortunate victim of, like, say, blackmail, right? Like there's all of these outside issues that really influence. And this was a huge topic in the DoD space, right? We spent almost more time training on outsider threats that were not attacking the DoD, but are attacking the people that work for the DoD, and blackmail them, or other victimhood type incidents. And then you create an inside threat, right? So I think I really love educating users about, hey, you got all this stuff at work, we taught you all this, but like, what about your personal email? Right? Those very basic things.
Yeah. There's actually an example of this right now playing out. Dragos, 3 months ago, had an employee that they brought on that when he onboarded, he was already compromised. He already had threat actors in his core system. And when they sent him his credentials to sign on for the first time, guess what? Threat actor signed on and started actually accessing data. And the only reason they found it was they had great access controls in place that showed the denials when they kept trying to touch assets as they were enumerating, right? And they wouldn't have found it otherwise. But to your point, that person didn't do their due care and got compromised at home and brought that to be the destruction of a company, right? And I think that's one I wouldn't have thought of, Dom. So one Dom point at this point. Bill, can you think of anything where employees fail to take that due care and due diligence on?
Yeah, I wanted to follow on with what Dom said. One of the things that you go to social media when people post a lot of stuff about themselves, like you said, they're open books. Like one of the things I have to tell my wife when we're on vacation is do not post pictures of us in Europe, because you've just opened us up for attack in our home, or
especially not in the moment.
Right.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Like, you can do it when you get home.
Right.
In general, I think a lot of people don't like. One of the things is like try to be more private, and when I say that is like on the mechanism, we're on the system. It's the same way with privacy. We treat privacy like it's wide open, and the world treats privacy like, hey, I'm going to be careful about telling you that. One of the things that people do, I think, a lot, and this is regional here to North America, but we will just let everybody know all kinds of stuff about us. That, like, don't do that. You are giving the bad actors more to be able to get closer and closer and hack your bank accounts, hack whatever. Like, be very careful with your data about yourself.
Yeah, 100%. David, let's ask you for one. What are the things where an employee can be more diligent? And I know you have a pet conversation that's your favorite go-to, but I was just curious. What are your thoughts on this, brother?
More awareness for social engineering. That's going to be probably my biggest one.
So what is social engineering, David? Help me understand that.
Anyone just trying to talk their way into the system, trying to get users to do things that they're not supposed to do. Usually there's a lot of emotion behind it. That there is, I think it was either DEF CON or Black Hat. There's a pretty famous one of a lady in the sound box playing the crying baby noise on her phone while she's on the phone with AT&T, getting them, or someone else, like, getting them to change the contact information on some account or whatever. That's one that really stuck with me for a very long time. I'm sitting here talking about it, so yeah, it's still with me.
I remember that one. And what it goes towards is human emotion, right? One of the things that's interesting about us is we often think emotionally, not rationally, right? That's a human. And if you've ever not done that, then good on you. I certainly have reacted emotionally, right, Claire? But you can see things where you're not necessarily being logical in your thoughts. And so what's interesting about social engineering is it does attack that directly, right? It takes advantage of that. And to your point, David, I remember that she had a little phone. She was on the phone with AT&T, and she starts playing the crying baby noise on the phone, right? She's like, I got to get back to my baby. I'm so sorry. I'm so flustered. And what do people want to do? They want to be the savior. They want to help. And so they try to help. And most recently, this has played itself out. Yeah, it's the hero aspect of it. And most recently, this played out just in the MGM attacks, right? And in the Caesars attacks. Those were basically situations where someone called into the help desk and said, I'm Johnny. I need to get connected to the VPN. Please help me. I can't get connected to the VPN. Once that happened, infrastructural enumeration occurred, and everything we know that came out of that happened. So ultimately, you're right, David, is that people need to be better trained and better aware of those social engineering. And I think there's actually a challenge there because it takes empowerment. And here's why. If you think about it, when I get a call to action from a social engineering perspective, I am trying to solve something quickly for someone. I may not in certain companies have the luxury of saying, I'm not helping you with this right now. I can't validate your identity. I can't do what I need to do. I'm sorry, I can't help you. Most people aren't empowered necessarily to take a stand and take an action when something doesn't seem right. And their only goal and the only thing they're measured on is a KPI on a support desk for how quickly they respond to something. And I say all that to say I think it's the company's job to actually empower people to not fall for social engineering, to give people that time to wait. One of the biggest things around social engineering is it always comes with an imperative timeline, right? It always comes with I have to do this now. I need you right now. It's a big, important thing. And they try to get that call to action to be imperative so you don't have time to think, right? And I think to your point, where do employees often fail? I think it's in being in the training. It's in doing the training. I think I could only imagine, David, as you look at these numbers on training, how few people are taking their micro trainings, how few people lean into that and are actually getting it done and require chasing it down or internal stunts to try to drive leadership. I mean, if you remember, Chris Sharp last year did, be better than Sharpie, right? And he told everyone in Australia that he could be better at the cybersecurity tests and quizzes than anybody else. And what did it do? All of Australia got up to the mark, right? And so you start getting down
still
that.
won,
so Bill,
though.
I think he did win. Yeah, he may have cheated, but he won. I'm calling you a cheater there, Sharpie. Love you, tease. Bill, this is the question I want to pose to you. How much of it is in your hands to empower people to be able to do the right thing? How much is it in leaders' hands to drive culture of cybersecurity?
I think a lot of it. I mean, when you think about it, one of the roles that we have is to, encourage and talk about it. And, one of the things we can do as leaders is not overwhelm everybody with all of our acronyms, which you guys already caught me on.
Fair.
I think one of the best things to do is to simplify the message and get it out to everybody. When I'm like, I do this to myself all the time. I call a timeout, throw a flag on myself, and start to say, how can I get this conversation? How can I make somebody understand what I'm saying and not make it be a bunch of acronym speak or whatever? That's one of the ways that we can do it, is because we can, once we get it into that more palatable, easy to understand vernacular, if you will, we can start, then it resonates. The other thing you see me do is I look for analogies to get them by, I want to empower them by making something like the bubble wrap we talked about earlier, make it sound easier for them to understand. And then the other thing too is I'll go back to this like I'm pedantic as hell, is I just want to tell everybody, it's up to everybody. You're part of this. It's not segmented off to us, the people that think about security. Right. You're part of this. Like, become part of it, and do the microservices. Like, test yourself. Be vulnerable to make mistakes and fail, and like call it out, and do those kind of things, and then tell people those stories, like what you did, and make it funny, and joke around about how you screwed something up, and all of those things. I think that's how we can empower these people and our people in general to really take that ownership.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack there that was really awesome. The first one being the nomenclatural barriers we set up for ourselves. Like, if somebody was going to try to tell me that is a preloaded stress truss bridge suspended on cables that are pressed down, no, it's a freaking bridge. Like, just tell me it's a bridge. It gets me across the stupid water. Like, I don't need all that. And yet, for some reason, as engineers and as practitioners, we find a hard time separating it down into that distillable, meaningful thing to people that aren't practitioners. So I
We're
love
nerdy about our
that first.
topic, right? Like we love talking about the ones and the zeros and the bits and the bytes, and
Oh
it's
yeah,
fun.
the nerdy bits.
So it takes a lot of training and experience to get yourself to have the business and the very human conversation.
Yeah, 100%.
Right. I
It's the
always
teacher's
tell
dilemma.
Dave, by the way, I always tell him like one of the things that upsets me the most is when somebody does like a Rube Goldberg project in security. I'm like, you just made it overly complex. Like,
Yeah.
don't ever do that. Like, simplify, simplify, simplify. So,
Yeah,
like,
100%.
yeah, wholehearted.
We're gonna have this trigger do this, and then this thing's gonna go over here, and it's gonna run down this one little chute down to this ladder, and then, yeah, 100%. I get it.
It's like a demented
no
game
doubt.
of chutes and ladders. It's impossible.
The other piece that I want to talk on, and I think this is really important, is a concept called social proof. Social proof is a concept in psychology that was kind of invented in the 80s in Great Britain. And it's this kind of statement that says, if Dom Kirby spoke the language of a citizenry, of a location, but had never been exposed to their people, practices, things they did, none of the stuff, just dropped in a new culture, able to speak. Almost instantly, Dom would do the things that people around him did. He would be on buses, he would wear pants, he would be going to eat at the restaurants, he would be doing all the things following people around him, because we as humans, our nature puts us that way, or we've never found ourselves around a campfire together. We'd have never teamed up to become societies, right? We're wired that way. And what's interesting about social proof is it says if you reward the positive behaviors, people will do that. Well, when we think about fishing, and everybody in the audience right now, you've all done it because I've done it. How many of you have gone after a fishing exam, gone, I got Johnny. Look, Johnny failed. We got Johnny. Johnny needs to be better. Let's go teach Johnny. Right? But in reality, yeah, thank you. All of us, right? But in reality, what if we, instead of focusing on Johnny, focused on Sally and Bill and the other 90% of people that did not click on that, the ones that were the heroes? Even in the title of this, there was a comment in our run of show that said, our people are our weakest link. That is not true. Our people are our strongest link. One of them fails and we fail. But in reality, people actually do the right thing most of the time. People actually do respond to security threats and think twice and not click and talk to security, right? David, how many times have you gotten people sending in phishing emails that weren't phishing emails, or they were, but people are sending them out to you and asking you to look at them, right?
The time.
Yeah. And I think the point is we need to focus on that. And we as an industry need to change the way we talk. And we need to start saying we are actually really good. Our people are trainable. They are able to grow through these challenges and learn new tech and new ways of being secure. And I think at the same time as Bill, to your point, we're making things easier for them to do it. We're making it harder for them to fail. We're giving them more tools. We've got the cool phishing report button that makes it really easy. Those two coming together provide a really good strategy for getting employees to do the right thing and be vigilant. Maybe vigilant? I don't think vigilant's a word, but being vigilant. Right? Yeah, I thought it wasn't vigilant, so we're probably okay. But I do think that we need to focus on positive.
Sounds like an acronym, but I'm not going to expand on it. We'll talk about that one.
It's probably. Can anybody add anything to that of how we as a company try to focus on the positive and try to drive the wins in our world from a security perspective, and maybe even how we could be better as a conversation?
I could add that one of the things that I found in my time here is how great and strong the culture is. And I think one of the things we do is really like build that culture. And this is part of that culture. It's like, say, hey, part of our culture is how much you love this company and how much you want to protect it. Like you said, Matt,
Amen.
Is to, yeah. And that it's part of like securing this because we've got bigger things ahead of us. And this is, and I truly believe and just say, hey, and it's going to take being vigilant and secure and having your spidey sense on to go forward and make this place even greater than it already is.
Dude, the auditors are in the room. I can hear them. It always gets me a little nervous when the auditors start talking in Dom's background.
I'm really getting audited here today.
It's a tough one. And, one of the things that I think sticks out in that from an employee culture perspective is once you have that culture of people that do want to do the right thing and you've empowered those and you've talked about it and you have an energy of positivity, it's really easy to guide those. I said this in the beginning. There's never been a dog trainer that beat their dog into being a good dog. There is no occasion where beating a dog makes them a better dog. It doesn't. Loving a dog, rewarding the positives, being positive when they do the right thing so you can tell them they're doing the right thing. Those are all attributes of training an amazing dog. And I'm not trying to correlate all of our Pax8 employees to dogs, but I will say as humans, we're no different. I lean in when someone gives me reward. I run away when people punch me. I don't try to put myself in that scenario. And so it's really interesting when you have a good culture that's already ready and primed with all that positivity, which we really are. Like, that's one of the great things about Pax8 is it's a really positive environment. You can easily guide that dog into doing amazing things, right? And having a much brighter future in that way. So I think it's been a fantastic thing. We're getting towards the end of this episode about employees, responsibility and opportunity to protect the organization. I'd like to ask each of you if you have any closing thoughts, and then Dom, you can close us out.
Just that from my perspective, it takes keeping going. I'll go back to it takes a village. We're all here for you, and the other thing too is please reach out and ask us any questions. We're here for you. You have security questions. If you have something that you saw was maybe it was interesting, or you want say if you see something, say something, bring it to us. We're here to help you iron that out.
I love it, David.
Same thing as Bill. Send me everything. Wake me up. It is important.
I actually do. Honest. I do want to harp on that because there's some security teams where it is not okay to contact. It is not seen as a positive thing. And I've had to come to you, and unfortunately, y'all have had to come to me a couple times. But it's been very approachable and very, to your point, Bill, let's try to get through this. Let's figure out what the next steps are. Let's assess where we are and see what the next things we can do to help. Tom, what are your thoughts right now, buddy?
I think everyone hit the nail on the head. We need to encourage collaborating with your cyber teams, right? They cannot do what they do without you. I think it's the most important thing to drive home. And we have a great one, right? As we kind of showcase over these last few episodes, they are approachable. They are willing to collaborate with you and talk to you, and you're not gonna get a huge slap on the wrist if you fail a phishing test. In fact, I failed a phishing test at Pax8, and I immediately put it on LinkedIn because I thought it was funny. And that's that culture we have. And if you're building that, if you're a security team or if you're an MSP, you need to be building that positive security culture so the people are actually encouraged and want to work with you to be better at that. Before we cut out, we do have to do the flag. So if you're a Pax8er, this is your moment. If we could get the flag up, it will be, you're going to need this one in the chat, I promise you. So it will be pasted in the chat. This one's a tough one.
Dot.
Looks like a Fatboy Slim song, I think. Anyone know that song? Good, I'm not alone here. That is this week's flag. Like I said, Claire is going to be putting that in the chat for you so you can copy paste that directly into the CTF. Matt, any thoughts before we shut her down?
Nope. I think it's just one of those things. I hate that we have 1 month a year we think about cybersecurity. You know me, I've got the volleyball at home that I talk to and nobody else wants to talk cyber. But ultimately,
I got one too.
It's okay. Great. And I do want to continue to say, if you have an internal security team, this is one of those months where it's time to thank them and highlight them and talk about the things they do for you and build the culture in your organization. Focus inward and actually celebrate those wins and those awesome humans. And I just want to, as always, close this out by saying thank you to you two. I very, very much care about the success of all of our partners that depend on us to care about our security. And I think it's really awesome to have an amazing team here with us. So thanks for being here with us, guys.
Thanks so much, guys. Thank you. This has been another fantastic show. Thanks so much for joining us on this Cybersecurity Month episode. Wow, something just happened to the production.
That was weird. I was like, I see myself.
That's my bad.
Okay, I digress.
Anyways, thanks so much for joining us. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. Don't forget to hit up pax8beyond.com. I got to talk about Beyond a lot this week. The early bird price will go away in January. There will be no extending it. Lots of people are signing up. Don't miss your chance to get your seat. And with that, we will see you next week.